Claybrook is the practice lead for hybrid IT. He will be your host for Track B along with Jason Jolly. He is an executive here at MicroStrategies. So Bob, why don't I go ahead and kick it over to you to get Track B started?
Well, good morning, guys, and welcome. So we're here to discuss cloud technologies and more specifically the IBM Cloud Pak for applications. Jason and I will follow up with some use case discussions following the two sessions with Sean and then Daniel. So Jason, we've heard a lot of things today. I think we've learned a few things as well. Fun conversation with Sean and Daniel. We've talked a lot about where companies are, meeting them where they are, and I know you called out some use cases and things like that. And we even talked about born on cloud companies when they start to scale, right? So you go, and I hate to say born on cloud companies tend to be smaller when they start. Obviously, they start to scale, but helping them scale, whether we're talking about a traditional organization that hasn't embraced cloud technologies or boundless technologies, which is my new way of saying it.
I like it. It's good.
Boundless framework. That's just the way I think about it. How can I get connectivity? And I love the fact that we finished up with integration, because that is the key, right? Daniel talked a lot about the SaaS applications and everything that you have to consider when you're incorporated into your strategies and things like that. So what's your perspective? And I know not to be too repetitive from the earlier sessions, but meeting folks where they are.
So first, I just wanted I know we've thanked them already, but I love talking to those guys because they go so deep on both the theory and the actual applied, right? And how it actually works with teams. And I think from our perspective, that's what we often have to think about, is how do we take all this knowledge that we talk about in these kinds of meetings and then apply it with our customers, right? And then with ourselves. So we've had to go on our own cloud journey, from over the time I've been at MicroStrategies 15 years, but we've been always evolving with that, as has our customer solutions. So I think when we look at it, we often look at it in the same kinds of buckets that Daniel and Sean talked about. We talk about people and processes and architecture and how we deal with that, and then how does that apply to our customers. So we have to, I think about our people, right? Because I think MicroStrategies, we always talk about our people as being one of our most important assets. So how do we take ourselves on a cloud journey and then take our customers on one? And a lot of it is building the right team, having the education there and the engagement, having conversations like this, not just on a webinar, but also internally, right, which we do have. And having those feedback cycles, which are incredibly important. We've been talking about feedback cycles, whether we called it agile or not. I know you've been dealing with this a lot too. How do we know we're doing the right thing and have those checks and balances along the way, and not doing the big black box 6-month, 12-month, 2-year projects where you just say, okay, we have the requirements, now we're shoving this solution we built on you, and they have to say, okay, yeah, this is exactly what we asked for, but not what we need, right? And then you have all that time you have to cycle back. So I think having those kinds of perspectives with having the team get the feedback and have the team being invested in how those solutions happen. Having that, and I know that's kind of coming from the left of, I think, his diagram he had before, right? But having that, the culture of learning, right? The culture of being able to make mistakes, and the infrastructure, the architecture enables us to do that. I mean, we can deploy on OpenShift. We can have the dev team get stuff out there quickly. We can have our customers see it, get their hands on it, and then know something's not right and change it, right? And we want to make those minor changes all the way through a project, because then we're staying on track, right? It's like our navigation system. We're staying on track the whole way through, and really having the people being able to make the mistakes, being able to learn, have the sandbox environments, have the infrastructure as code, so we're not missing stuff that we do on the server. I think it really it does create a powerful situation with the team, and I know that's just one aspect, and the processes, well, we can talk about that too, and the architecture and stuff, but that part, which I know they do put emphasis on at IBM, and they have a lot of great white papers there, and I know Sean had a listing on that last slide of some things, but it does help us a lot, and I know you've been seeing this too, and we've talked about this kind of stuff a lot of times, but
it's interesting. It's interesting. Just to give you guys a perspective, and clients out there, I was on the client side for many years. I've been working with Jason for the past 2. You know, it's interesting to see where we are today, because we experience the same things internally that you guys are experiencing, that I've experienced in my past, right? So when earlier I said the holy war between development and the infrastructure team. Based on development, I'm the infrastructure team.
Yeah.
So and we have BPICs, right, which, you know, are business process innovation centers, right? Well, we have technology racked and stacked in data centers. Basically, there's one here in New Jersey, there's one down in Philadelphia. So we integrate those things, right? So from an infrastructure perspective, it's my job to work with the teams and make sure that Jason has a place to play, or those sandboxes that we talked about. We actually make that stuff first. We talk about the security of it.
Yeah.
As we protect, Jason's building something, we protect our clients' code. So when we talk about these things, we not only talk about it with our clients and where we meet them and where they are, we deal with ourselves, right? So we're, you know, in happy harmony right now, because I know Jason doesn't have to worry about any power outages or anything like that from his perspective. He'll monitor in the cloud, and he's very comfortable at this point. But it did take us a while to get there. So I just want to give you that context. So when we talk to you about this, we're not only living and breathing it from a client perspective. When we work with clients externally, we deal with it internally, especially in Jason's team, because they're building solutions for customers using our on-premise or our cloud accounts or public cloud accounts that we utilize. So that's just gives you that context. And I think the one thing from my perspective, you know, and Jason mentioned this a lot earlier, empowering people, it's what it's all about. I, from my role, want to empower him to be able to do what he needs to do. And I don't want him to have to worry about the things that don't provide a lot of business value, right? And I hate to say security is not important. Security is of the utmost importance, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want him to have to worry about it. I want to enable him. And that just plays through in businesses, right? So I think Daniel mentioned shadow IT. I dealt with that for many, many years. And it didn't necessarily upset me. It was, how can I do a better job of bringing the technology closer to those folks so that I can understand what they're doing and keep the company safe at the end of the day. So I think that's when we talk about bringing technology forward. Many of you have talked about shadow IT or the analytics team, which I know Juan is in the other track, but how to keep him happy and create those dynamic environments that he can utilize, right? So it's just like Jason. The only challenge is, we've talked about IoT and AI. We're dealing with some significant data problems in Juan's area. So it's really you know, we're sitting here talking about cloud packs. They really do enable those things. The technology works now, and I know it's something that I struggle with for a very, very long time. To have that technology and that scalability, that I used to call it elastic scale when I would talk to my partners, my vendor partners about it. And now it's here, and I know it's a lot of fun. Is, you know, you hear Jason and I talk about operating the environment micro or implementing it for clients, to not worry about the frameworks that we used to run up against, and really put a boundless framework in place. So that's kind of, you know, my my 2 cents about my time here at Micro, my past experience and working with Jason. So we're having a fun time with it. So
You know, I'm going to say boundless at least 5 more times after this
I
call.
know.
It's going to be stuck in my head now.
We just came up with that this week when we were talking about our presentations. Pretty cool. But you know, so anyway, talking about the technologies and such, I think that, I guess the next thing from our perspective is, you know, you've talked about some of the experiences that we have. I think you went through, you know, you're utilizing containers today, and people want to call it Kubernetes containers, whatever, right? It's an open source standard. I think that's the important point. You know, from a Cloud Pak perspective, they embrace it. You know, Red Hat is based on open source standards and things, specifically OpenShift, and we're an Ansible shop as well. We run the Red Hat stack as well as the IBM solution. So we are taking advantage of those things, and I think Jason's called it out, the ease of use of those products. So you know, as we meet people where they are and figuring out where along the journey, it's our job to come in and help enable them and show them these things. And you know, there really aren't any limits as to what we can do anymore. And I even, you know, I've said IoT a few times today. I really think that's the next wave. But what we're able to implement today is significant, and really allowing the organizations that we work with to take that technology, and it's just like riding a bike, right? Every day. It's no longer I have to work with the IT department and I dread the day, right? Now that my technology partner's in the room, you heard Daniel talking about having his integration teams spread out into the business departments. I think the integration component, just like when you get cross-functional departments, having technology there and talking about the integration is the most key thing. And you don't want people to be frustrated. So for someone in my role, we want to make sure that I'm enabling the technology. For someone like Jason's team, to bring forth the business teams very quickly and enable those sandboxes. So I don't know and that's, again, I'm trying to bridge, meet them where they are and bring the technology out to, and then just to our business partners and integrate with the business as to what we experience today. So I don't know, Jason, I want to follow up on that.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's kind of funny you mentioned the shadow IT, and shadow IT is usually a great representation of what you need to do next, and that it's a problem you haven't solved that you still have to solve, right? Yeah, and we do see that across our customers and in-house, that we always have another problem to solve, right? I know we often say that we're better this year than we were last year, and we hope to be better next year than we are this year, right? We're always trying to improve, and even in the evolution of what we've done, we've going from physical machines, virtual machines, clustered virtual machines, go to the cloud, have containers, et cetera. But the containers and container orchestration and with OpenShift, it really is another level for us in that we've often had dev environments local, and a number of our clients follow this same kind of model. When we're delivering code, we'll have people code on their local machine, they have Docker, et cetera. We'll have an integration environment that might be on our own on-premise equipment, right, where we can still run containers and Kubernetes and the same stuff. We have the
laptop, but
yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, exactly. We'll have the laptop. We'll have that integration environment. We can use the BPIC or the EBIC, the Enterprise Business Innovation Center, to be able to deploy there, which is great. And then we also Azure, AKS, IBM Cloud. We're all of those, right? So I can think of a very recent project that we just this summer. Where we had to do development locally. It was leveraging Docker, and then we leveraged OpenShift in order to be the orchestration of everything. And what that did for us is it enabled us to be deploying to IBM Cloud and on-premise in a very ubiquitous way, very, very similar way. But it also took away so much complexity for the developers, right? It's tough being a development expert and a infrastructure expert and a security expert, and you'll fail if you do all of those, which is why we have our teams and we have people that can set up the infrastructure in a very secure way. So I think that kind of meeting people where they are, right? It happens within the team too, right? So it's
Jason, sorry to interrupt. Jason, you were saying something about shadow IT is what's next. That's a great analogy. And I guess I'm just sitting here thinking about adaptability and from a technology perspective and how we get out there and understand that. So if you can imagine, in my past experiences, the shadow IT teams have been isolated within a department, right? So if
Sure.
you can imagine an overall shadow IT, it's no longer shadow IT, it's just your technology team being out and being in front and really being able to connect to those components. So it's kind of, as you bring the teams together, you empower the people, whatever the business value that you're trying to drive, you get those folks in a room and they work through it. Everyone plays their role and they can move it forward, and you don't have to worry about the barriers that quite frankly, the shadow IT folks were dealing with, right? Which was typically an infrastructure team, and development has probably advanced further than infrastructure, but now with platforms like OpenShift or the Cloud Paks, we can bring that stuff forward. And I think along those lines, what they were doing then is trying to iterate and move fast. So really, where I was really going is we talked about fail fast earlier, right? So identify an opportunity and fail fast. Now you have the power of the entire technology platform or the enterprise technology platform at your fingertips, and you can really tap into it. And that doesn't mean, days of old, I have to set in the business team and we're going to order a computer and we're going to deliver it, And I think Jason said using his credit card, which I've experienced that too, for the development team, setting up boxes. But so now all of that power is there. Jason doesn't have to talk to anybody. The business team doesn't really have to talk to anybody because you have the developers or that former shadow IT person with the power to engage the enterprise. And I think that is where we are today. And I think that the impressive thing for me to work with on a daily basis, work with clients or work internally with Jason and Adam and Juan, it's a pleasure at this day because there's no more excuses. It's just what business value do we want to drive? The technology is available now. And I'm looking forward to the IoT, by the way.
It turns around the shadow IT thing because typically shadow IT. Okay, I really need to use this service. I'm just gonna put my credit card, get it done, and I'll worry about approval later. That kind of concept, right? Which is not great. Now it's, hey, I need to be able to do this, and how can we as a team, a collective, you, me, everybody else, how do we achieve this goal, right? And maybe we have to do something quick and easy, and to get something done. But we know that it's on our roadmap as a collective team, right? That and we know that we're using common technologies, we're all in alignment, and it helps us deliver things in a more standard way, which is good.
I look at it like this, from an integration perspective. I think that conversation with Daniel is so important when you really talk about this. We're integrating the technology to the business teams. We've talked a lot about people, we've talked about empowerment, but the business operations, so no matter what they're doing, you always have these supply chain systems that might be ancillary and they're not as directly connected. So now we're starting to enable that data and bring it back, whether it's to understand what's occurring and to skim off some of that data, bring it into a decision platform and make a better decision with AI or whatever the case may be for visibility into it. But the point is you're bringing all that data closer and you're integrating it into your enterprise, and it becomes a very powerful engine. And your enterprise is not just the systems that you support. It might be SaaS applications that you utilize or other people's systems that you need to integrate with. We have clients that are in the transportation industry, and we talk about inventory across all of the travel velocities, those sites of the world. They have to expose cars, inventory around the world, right, on a real-time basis. So I think that when you think about those problems at scale, you really need to consider the platforms and the frameworks that you're using, the folks that you're working with, and how you want to approach it from a business perspective. But the whole point is to bring the people together with the technology that can support it securely, of course, and and then even to be able to go back to the whole iterative nature of the fail fast, right? So I even at that scale, I still want to be able to experiment and fail fast. So that's from that perspective, it's all here, and it's time to move forward at the end of the day. So
yeah, no, I love that, because we can trust that we could roll something out that is a truly enterprise solution. But we can also trust that if we need to do quick POCs or even, for our business, doing pre-sales opportunities, and we have to build a quick demo, one of the values we end up providing to our partners and our customers is that we can do that quickly, right? I know a lot of our vendor partners will talk to us about doing engagement, and they love us because we don't just go and do a stock demo and say, okay, this demonstration of ABC. We say, okay, the customer needs this. Let's spin something up quickly and try to meet that actual use case that the customer needs. And we can't do that very easily unless we have all of this ecosystem around us, so that the technology infrastructure and the culture and how people work and how people learn, all of that kind of comes together and helps. And then it makes it also more reusable. When we architect our solutions using patterns like microservices instead of building a big monolith every time, it's easier to grab onto a piece and then reuse it for a new purpose, right? And that just is important across the board for us.
yeah, I just wanted to. I was just checking my notes from things that I want to make sure that I said today, and I'm not sure if I said this. I'm going to say it again. If I did already, I apologize. But one thing about the myths of cloud technologies and such, the cloud technologies can run anywhere, right? Today,
Yes.
and I think when we talk about boundless, that's what we're saying. If I have resources internally that I want to use, and I know I mentioned 24/7 compute, maybe those are the only things that I have that I use 24/7. In many cases, those are production systems, so maybe all your development systems are in a public cloud somewhere. You're looking for platforms that can move back and forth or boundlessly move in and out, that does not slow down your delivery mechanism. So I think that's what we're saying from that perspective. So the myth that cloud technologies only work in public cloud, that's why we're here today, right? We call it hybrid. Most people call it hybrid, but it's really about using your on-premise technologies along with complementing them with public cloud, or in some cases using a SaaS service, which could be hosted in a cloud environment, which is outside of. And then you talk about the integration back to. So that was one component. If I wasn't clear enough earlier, I just want to make sure that everyone understands. We say cloud operating system, something like Red Hat OpenShift. We can move across anything at the end of the day. And even I interrupted Jason a moment ago and talked about the laptop, because the developers do bring the platform down to the laptop and build, and they can push it right back to the on-prem technologies or out to public cloud infrastructures. So just to
And when you think about it, the customers we deal with, and even ourselves, the old school perimeter of an organization, it isn't the same concept of what it used to be before, right? The idea of here's a cloud, here's on premise, and that's the way it works. now everything we do, cloud native technologies, we build local on our laptops. We have the same things on our Hyper-V servers or our VM servers that we have in-house, and then our OpenShift platform that we're running. And then we also use IBM Cloud or Azure AWS, and it's the same across. We're dealing the same technologies. We're not pivoting the technologies based off of where we are. And part of that's because the perimeter of an organization is changing as we go through. We have solutions we've deployed 10 years ago that were only meant to be run in-house in a building where people in the building had access, and that was it. And now, of course, that's evolved, and the company is, people are everywhere, right? So they have to be able to access it, and maybe it's not just a VPN thing anymore. And so dealing with those cloud native technologies right off the bat, it's pervasive whether you're on-prem or not. Right? It's just something that we have to consider and build all our solutions that way.
So, Jason, we've got about 9 minutes left here. What would you want to leave folks with, or what are your final thoughts? I've got a few of my own. I'll probably play off of yours as well as add a few additional ones, but just go back and forth. I know we've had a lot of conversation. I know that there's the analytics piece going on. So I have a comment around how to bring that back in. And then oddly enough, there's a security track going on as well with Cloud Pak for security. So we've talked about it a lot here from a security perspective, in that, your expectation is it's there, and the security teams have the platform, like we've talked about, the cloud operating system, to be able to secure the work that you're doing, so it's not a challenge for you, which we have. And then from an analytics perspective, throughout the day, we've talked about spinning the data off and reincorporating or reiterating that back into the business processes, which we've now pushed out to shadow IT. So what would you like people to think about, and or what would you like to add to that small framework that I just talked about, the operating model for the day for the folks?
So the first thing is to not be scared, because we deal with organizations that are every stage of readiness when it comes to cloud native tech or containers or container orchestration, and it can sound overwhelming to get involved with all that. And I think you and I've talked about this. It's almost everything old is new again, and that yes, it's Kubernetes or Docker or et cetera, but it doesn't mean the concepts are necessarily new. Meaning the idea of breaking things down to be more modular, basically microservices now, but this is the kinds of things that have been good practices all along, right? It's just we have some tech that makes it a bit easier now to handle stuff. So I think for anybody listening that are trying to figure out, they're in their cloud journey, how do they go left, right, or, how do they keep on track? I think it's focusing on fundamentals, like the processes that you have, the people you have, that culture of learning, the culture of being iterative and trying to deliver value as quick as possible, and then figuring out from an architecture standpoint what kind of steps you want to make. So when we go into a new organization and talk about, we may go into a place and say, you know what, we're taking months to deliver value to our customers. I mean, we'll hear things like that from customers sometimes. We want to build a solution and get the value quicker. You could start off by trying to chop that in half, or chop it down by a percentage, and then do it again and do it again. And all of a sudden, you'll be able to you'll notice you're delivering that value within weeks, and maybe even days if you're ready for it. And chopping those cycles down, but it's not a big bang. Right? It's just iterative steps, trying to do a little bit better each time. When we started our cloud journey, and even security journey, when we started looking more into secure development, we were thinking things like, we have to be an expert at this in order to go forward, right? We have to have security experts on our development teams and things like that. And a lot of these myths that really come out, right? We do have the great luxury that we have our security team at MSI that is a huge luxury, which is fantastic. And we know that the infrastructure team is kind of giving us those bumpers to work within. So having that sandbox to play in really does give us a lot of value. And I think if customers can have a sandbox to play with, great, right? I know we often act that way as their sandbox, being a place to do those POCs and then deliver. But I think those kinds of things are crucial to be able to move quick and deliver the value quicker. And that's what I'll often go back to, is the people process architecture, just like Daniel was talking about. The processes that we've had when we had to reevaluate them early on, thinking about how to adopt cloud and security, they've stayed mostly the same. It's just a greater recognition of the technologies we have at hand. We still have short feedback cycles. We have a technologist code of conduct that says all the things that we the policies, the principles that we abide by when we're doing a solution. Like being honest with estimates, and saying no if we can't commit to something, and all those good things. Delivering good quality software all the time, not cutting corners. Having a CI, continuous integration, continuous deployment processes in place. A lot of people have some form of these already, and they maybe just keep taking them steps forward to deliver quicker or faster. Having the clean code, tester and development. When we talk about these kinds of core concepts for doing development, it turns out they are security practices as well, right? And they are good cloud practices as well. It enables us to turn on a dime, for the approach that we're taking, and deploy things quicker and adapt to security changes quicker. If there's something that happens, we have tests, we can run them. So I think it's staying close to the fundamentals. How you're handling people and culture and the teams, having your processes so that you can still take the very good practices that you may have and processes that you may have, and just consider cloud and security with them, and then thinking about the core architecture and how we're enabling that. And I know you spent a lot of time on that, by the architecture and how the tools that are enabling us to do our work, which is where the Cloud Pak and OpenShift has come into play in a great deal. Because it does enable us to do all those things I just talked about much easier. It has a lot of the tools built into it, and it saves us a lot of configuration headache, which we've had to deal with in the past. Yeah. I know that was a bit of a rant. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. No, because you're trying to summarize the day. I only have a couple minutes here, but I just want to call it a key points. But by the way, I love the don't be scared, because that's what it always comes down to, right? Like we're going to break something, and it goes back to fail fast, which it just, you've got to get out there and understand the lack of limitations, I guess is the best way to say it, because it is a vast ecosystem now that we're talking to. And I mentioned earlier about dealing with worldwide inventory systems that might be a part of your systems and may not, and sharing those components with all your business partners. I mean, that's where you want to be, that type of connected to be successful. So that I love that. I learned a few things today, just thinking about the shadow IT. It came up today, we talked about it, but I would say from a business perspective, if you have shadow IT today, still something's wrong with your technology platforms at the end of the day. If you have business teams that are compensating for your technology, that's what I would focus on, because especially if you think those shadow IT teams are driving business value. If they're not, you should be having other conversations, but if they are, you should figure out how to bring them close to the technology that you're utilizing today, and give them the tools and the sandboxes that they need to drive even more iteration and faster, and empower the correct teams and get the cross-functional department teams working with those guys. So in other words, bring them closer at the end of the day. I love Daniel's term, urban planner. He talked about the fact that technology guys tend to take titles from other organizations, which are probably more justified in their field of interest. But I do feel that way, that we're planning cities, and I love the fact he said legacy is anything you installed yesterday, right? So that's easier.
I mentioned that to my wife, who's an urban planner, and she was very happy for him to use the term. so I'll have to let him know.
I love it. That's great. I guess a couple things along those points. We talked about cloud, and we've talked about integration, right? And it is, and we've talked about boundless tech, and that, to me, cloud versus integration, they're two different things. It is about enabling cloud technologies, making sure you can run anywhere, but the integration strategy is just as important. And I think there's many different layers of integration, from empowering your people and bringing them together and integrating departments within your organization, along with integrating technology. So if you're having challenges getting to data, that's an integration opportunity, I guess. I would say challenge, but it's more of an opportunity, because the technology exists today to bring it together. And then I would say the last couple components are, the tech is ready, the technology is ready to do what you need to do to achieve your business goals, more than it's ever been in 2020. And IoT is coming, so if you're not thinking about it, start to consider that, and how you're going to integrate it into your business. And the the last thing is, this week we started talking about boundless technology, and I really like that. So give us a call if you'd like to talk. We're here. We'll meet you where you are, and we'll move your business value. We'll move your business forward along and generate true business value with the conversations that we have. So thanks for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Jason, Bob, thank you so much for leading the discussion.